Hey, this is Luke. Welcome to the VOUS Friends and Family YouTube channel. I'm so glad you're here. At VOUS, we never want to go at it alone. We believe in passing on what we've learned and creating spaces for others to be resourced. You're about to watch a workshop from VOUSCon 2023. I hope it encourages you and equips you for whatever season of life you find yourself in. Enjoy.
We are pumped for this morning. Thank you for taking the time to be here this morning. And thank you for everyone that's going to be watching this online. We are excited to be sharing this content with you. Today, we're talking about powerful partnerships. And I've got two of my friends up here that are part of our sponsorship team for 2023. This is Isaac with God Behind Bars. Come on, put your hands together for Isaac. And this is Panos with One More Child. Put your hands together for Panos. We've got a bunch of different resource partners in the expo, but these are two primary partners of ours at VOUS that we sponsor with, or we partner with really almost on a weekly basis in a very high capacity. So maybe, guys, talk a little bit before we get into the content of the workshop. I'd love for you guys give some context to yourselves, who you are, your role, and your organizations.
I'm Isaac. Actually, I got my title's hilarious, I think. My boss called me and said, "You are now the director of innovation." I can barely read, right? So I'm trying to figure out what that means. But but basically my role is to push the boundaries of what's possible in prisons. So I've always with me and our team, get to dream up what's something crazy we can do that's never been done that can make a deep and significant impact inside of prisons. God Behind Bars launches churches inside of prisons. We have a VOUS campus here in Miami with Everglades Correctional Institute, which has like 400 guys showing up. Guys are getting saved every single day. I shared yesterday, but 3 of the incarcerated men from that prison were here on Friday attending, and it's just so cool to see God just doing a full circle moment where it's like, you know, the work that you guys are doing every single week inside of that prison is now guys are coming to VOUS. Now people are coming to VOUSCon, and it's just cool to see what God's doing and how he's using VOUS Church to really impact incarcerated men and women. And I just want to say thank you and honor you all. We're so grateful for you. I was thinking, we were talking about powerful partnerships. VOUS Church is the most powerful partnership we have, truly. Like, you guys show up. One thing I always think about, which I was going to share, so I'll share it twice, but when you're working inside of prisons, what you put in is what you get out of them. And when you are coming in excited to be with these men who have, you know, their father may have never even shown up for them. Their mom may have never been there. And they show up looking at them in the eye, loving on them. Like, that's what you get out of them. And they show up and they keep showing up. And that's what you guys do. So I'm grateful for you all so much.
Good. Come on, put your hands together for God Behind Bars.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Panos. I serve as the National Director of Partnerships for One More Child. Our mission is to provide Christ-centered services to vulnerable children and struggling families. The way that we do that is we serve children that are in foster care, children that are children of single moms, hungry children, trafficked children, and then children in 15 countries around the world. And so one of the exciting things is that we started as an orphanage over 120 years ago in Central Florida. And so we might look a little bit different in terms of child welfare right now, but I know that with the mission staying the same of what we're doing, working alongside churches like VOUS, we're standing in the gap for children and families all over Miami, all over the state of Florida, all over the nation, all over the world. Miami is the largest county in Florida. It's the 7th largest county in the nation. And so as partnerships, VOUS, we're so grateful for our partnership and the fact that we get to stand in the gap. We get to serve foster children. There's a heart for the church in that. And then also we're part of the I Love My City movement. And so every month, I Love My City, VOUS blitzes the community with love, sharing the love of Jesus in action, in word and in deed. And so we're always one of those monthly recurring serve opportunities with VOUS. So we're grateful, and we'll see what's to come. I know that there's great things ahead because the Lord is very present in this partnership. and we're meant to do this together. And we'll talk about that more later.
That's very good. Come on, put your hands together for one more child. I like that. We blitz the community. I'm gonna steal that. But we are very grateful for these two. So if these are organizations that you would like to connect with afterwards, please take a moment and speak with them. In 2019, I believe at VOUS, part of our mission statement was that we were going to get into the foster care system and we were going to get into the prison system. And these are the two primary organizations that have helped us do so. So we love them a whole lot, and these are great men of God. And Isaac is going to propose to his future fiance today, actually. So come on. She'll see this video later, and he's gonna do it. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I love you. Yeah, it's so good. So,
Will you marry me?
Yeah.
Maybe I should give her the video.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is now a marriage seminar, and it's just awesome. I love his. I said wife earlier, and it's not his wife yet, but she will be soon. So yeah, it's prophetic. All right, so we're talking about partnerships. I think whether you're in the ministry space or not, so much of what you're able to accomplish in life is based on the partnerships that you have, on the relationships that you have. If you want to go fast, you can go by yourself. But if you want to go further, you got to go in partnership with different people, which is why we at VOUS, we've always valued being intentional about building the right partners. And part of the conversation that I want to have today is not just about what does a healthy partnership look like, but also how do you identify who's a good fit for you as a partner? How do you identify who's not a good fit for you as a partner? And then once you have established the partnership, how do you steward it properly? So guys, maybe we'll kick off with just laying a foundation. You two are in roles within your organizations that your job is to focus on looking and establishing partners. Talk to us about what are you looking for when you try to identify a partner?
I got this. All right. So it's so important in the kingdom to have these partnerships because we were not meant to do life alone. And if you look in John, the book of the Gospel of John, there's a part in chapter 17 where Jesus prays, praying that there's unity amongst others so that the world will know that he was sent by God. And so we're meant to do this together. And so part of that is, hey, we're built this way, where I'm meant to serve, but I'm not meant to only serve alone, but together with someone else. And it's important to realize that this is in the gospel. We're meant to do this together. So, when we serve, it's kind of like a mirror. We're reflecting the light of God. And so the more mirrors we can have together, the brighter the light. And in a dark space like in Miami, there's a lot of brokenness. There's a lot of beauty, but there's a lot of brokenness. And so the more that we come together, the brighter the light, the brighter the reflection of Jesus. And so we know that we're not to do it together. And a lot of that also comes down to, hey, do we love this city? Do we love the people that are in this city? We know that God loves cities. We see that biblically. And so God loves Miami. And we love Miami, and we love the people in Miami. So if we're looking to seek the flourishing, that people are living to the best that they've been created, that flourishing, we're seeking that, and that's a common value that we're looking for in other partners. Are we seeking the flourishing of children and families together? Are we looking for the vulnerable, the people that have been overlooked? How can we stand in the gap? Let's do this together. So those are some of the things that when I'm kind of looking for partners, finding that in heart, and then finding them in the work that they're doing. That's very good.
Yeah, it's funny. The last couple weeks, the Lord's just showed me two stories that have really hit me, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm hearing these, like just everywhere I hear this and see this, and in the Bible, and I think it was to share today, but it hit me this two different stories in the Bible, and it's the rich young ruler. And if you know the rich young ruler story, he did everything right, and he said, will you follow me? And Jesus says, will you follow me? And he does not go. Yeah. And then you have this massive contrast where you have a thief on a cross, and he says, you're going to be with me in eternity, to this thief on the cross. And he did nothing for God his whole life. He had maybe had an hour left. So for his 1 hour, he knew Jesus. He's going to go into heaven, he's going to go into heaven. This guy's not. And I think sometimes we have so many people, we have so many rich young rulers in the church. Like sometimes that's just the easier way, like just fill them up with that. And so when I look for partners, it's like, do you believe in that guy who has 1 more hour? Like who can never do anything for your church maybe? Like they can maybe never tithe, never maybe never serve. And a church that has the heart to reach them, that's what I look for. And it's like, you can just see it. And like one of the things that I love is so many churches will come to us and I'll meet with them and they'll be like, what do we need to do to make this happen? Because prison is hard. 75% of incarcerated men and women are going back to prison in 3 years. That's just the stat. So like you have to walk with them and you have to prepare your church to bring them in and to walk them through those 3 years and to help them. And if you're not doing that, and if you're just trying to check the box of like, hey, Jesus called us to love the prisoner, so we're going to try and do this, it's like, no, it's a full effort. It's a full focus. And so I really look for people who are like the thief on the cross. I believe that they are worth it, and I'm going to give our life for them. And yeah.
That's very good. I think I want to run down that vein for a second here because we have business leaders in the room, but also ministry leaders in the room. I think some of the temptation sometimes with identifying a partner is you're looking more at the tangible metrics. You're looking at the actual function of what that partner does to see if there's alignment there versus looking at the value system of that partner or what that partner is the mission of what that partner is trying to do, and you're preferring the prior alignment versus that secondary alignment. Can you talk about like that tension even that you guys navigate through? I know that if you're identifying somebody, you've got churches that you're looking at that, hey, I know they need to meet this criteria, but you're often taking a chance on a church that doesn't meet that criteria because there's a different alignment. Can you talk about the tension that you're navigating through, and then even why you're choosing that secondary alignment?
I think when we're looking at churches too, like we also want the church to have there needs to be some sort of I think for God Behind Bars, my big thing is like, how can we give them the story to tell their church, give them that vision? Because again, sometimes the numbers aren't there. Like it's not like, whatever the numbers are important. Getting a baptism in a prison can take 3 months, and you get 5 guys baptized. So the metrics of guys, you just got this, it's hard for a church to totally sometimes get behind all of that. But if you can sell them I really sell on vision and sell hey, well, I don't maybe not the word sell is not the right important, the greatest word, but I really try to show them we're doing this for the one. We're doing this for the one person who might just hear the gospel at the specific time, and you may go there over and over again and you don't see anything changing, but you keep going and you keep going and you keep going, and then that one day, maybe their family never showed up for them for visitation or something like that, and you were there and their life was changed in that moment. And we have so many stories of the one person changing everything. And so I think when I think about just aligning it's like a different alignment. It's not, hey, your baptisms were up, you have tons of those, and you got tons of salvations, and it's blowing up. Your church in prison is blowing up, which sometimes happens, but sometimes prison's just hard. It just takes time. And I love the Mother Teresa quote where she says, if you don't put one drop in the ocean, it's one drop less. And I think sometimes just focusing on the one, and there's one person out there that can hear the gospel for the very first time, and everything can change for them. And you got to find those stories. You got to fight for those stories. So
it's a good word. I think we're landing on alignment. I think that's something that's a thread that we're on now. And so I would say that with the alignment of what we're looking for a partner is if you kind of have this image of two horses pulling a carriage, one horse is maybe a little bit stronger than the other. It'll kind of drift towards the direction of that stronger horse. What we're looking for is we're looking for partners that are looking for Jesus, and they've got Jesus, and they're going towards Jesus. That's what we're doing. And in our mission, in our values, the alignments of values between both organizations, we want to work with, these horses, these strong partners to get in the direction of Jesus. So whether you're in a business, whether you're in a church, whether you are an entrepreneur, if you're set on Jesus and that's the direction that you're going, that's the direction we're going as well. And so let's hitch together and let's go together. The analogy that I'm thinking about with alignment also, like with these horses, one horse by itself will pull about 8,000 pounds. If you have two horses, you would think it's double, 16. It's actually 32,000 pounds that two horses can pull. Yeah. And the reason why I mention that is because there's something powerful about two horses or two people or two churches or two organizations going in the same direction where there's more than just the two of them separate. And so we know that there's something special in that. Yeah. There's something in the design that God has made for people, for creation, and that there's things working better together than apart. And so we're looking for that alignment. We're looking for the direction. We're looking for Jesus.
That's very good. Come on, that's great. Yeah, I think something that you hit on at the very beginning was identifying people that have the same value system that we have, and that God's intention for us is to operate in partnership. So I think even whatever sector you're in, as you're contemplating who to step into partnership with, that's something that we have to bring to God. That's something that we have to ask him to point us towards. It's something that we have to ask him to provide clarity on, so that the alignment is not just a natural alignment, but it is a supernatural alignment that God has opened a door and allowed us to walk through, because what he has attached to the partnerships that he establishes is more significant than what we can fabricate on our own. So I've seen the fruit of that even with these relationships, because these are relationships that we prayed for, and these are the relationships that God opened the door for, and the fruit of what has been produced is something that's supernatural and not natural. So we're talking a lot of healthy, like this is what to look for. What are some signs of who not to pick in a partnership? What are you like, absolutely not, I don't want to align myself with them, I don't want to partner with them? Tough question. Come on, Isaac.
I got an answer. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I think the value system is definitely one of those things that you check out, right? Like you had mentioned. So if values aren't meeting up, then I would say that's a big red flag. So quick story about apartheid in South Africa. One of the biggest things outside of Nelson Mandela himself said this. He had said that one of the things that took down apartheid in the space was that there were Christian investors in the United States that saw what was happening in companies down in South Africa, and they said the values of these companies are not aligned with who we are as Christians. And they pulled out. And so economically, what happened was investors were pulling out because there wasn't an alignment of values. Yeah. I'm a Christian, and I see what's going on there, and that's not right. And so because so many Christians pulled out, and they led the charge alongside with Nelson Mandela, that's when apartheid went away. And so it's one of those things where, okay, this is when the church steps into values and what's important, what's not important. The other thing I would say is you had mentioned fruit. One of the things that I think is important as organizations is to look for fruit. The Lord allows us the blessing to see fruit sometimes, but if you don't see any fruit, that could be a sign of a red flag. And so if there isn't any fruit coming from a partnership, that's something worth assessing, because we know in the Bible, a few chapters before John 15, it talks about God saying, I'm the vine and you are the branches. Apart from me, you're not going to bear any fruit. And so are these partners connected to the vine? And if they're not, it'll be evident by the fruit or the lack of fruit that is being born. And so that's something to keep in mind as time goes on. And yeah, I just encourage you to assess fruit always when it comes to partnerships with an individual, with an organization, with a church, because that's something that's very spiritual. That's the Holy Spirit's involved, and God is at the center of all of that.
Very good.
Yeah, I think the first way that we try to see if we're aligned and see is this a good partnership or not, is we really do check their theology. Like we ask, the first thing we ask is, will you send us your statement of faith? And we read through it and we look at it, and then we meet with them. And then I would say, like, a practical thing, if I can give anyone a practical thing, we don't just like, okay, check the box, theology's good, let's do this. Like, we walk for 6 months with them, and we meet with them over and over again. We also created a covenant. So it's not a contract, it's a covenant. And in the Bible, a covenant is actually bigger than a contract. It's a spiritual covenant. And we do that with every single church, and we walk through them. We say, hey, when we have an issue, it's Matthew 18. That's how we do it. Or this is what we believe. Like, do you align with our beliefs? Because we both have to be aligned. And if we're not, then, like, it's great. You guys go your way, we're going to go our way, and we're going to keep doing it, and we're supporting you. But I think, like, a tangible thing is don't just, I think so many times, I don't know if y'all are trying to, start something or look for someone or try to be aligned with a partner or start something yourself, but don't jump on the first thing that says you got to go, like, or they might give you $10,000 or whatever, like, walk the walk, because it's the hardest thing when you have a partner and you're like 3 years down the road and you're like, I should never have done this, because the Lord's going to bless you. The Lord's going to give you those partnerships. Like, don't just jump on something that's the first thing there. Like, really walk the walk. See if their life matches their theology too, like, you don't want to just like I can probably get a theology thing from any church and grab it and put it on there. Like, see if their walk matches their theology, because that's going to show so much about them. And if it doesn't, then run.
It's like dating a little bit, right? But
I just look at the
camera.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why
I was hoping
totally
you would get
like
that.
dating.
Tell her you love her. No, I'm kidding. I
miss you.
It is in a lot of ways, though. Forming a powerful partnership is about intentionality on the front end and consistency on the back end. So I have to be very intentional in pursuing who it is that I'm trying to partner with. But the pursuit isn't just getting them to say yes. The pursuit is getting to understand who they are and for them to understand who I am. So that applies in ministry and out of ministry. If you're trying to build something significant, you want to build it with the right people. So it's got to take some pursuit. But then now that after you've established the relationship, it takes the consistency of you checking in and maintaining the relationship, continuing to build relational equity, and continuing to measure whether you guys are hitting the metric, the goal, the vision that you have aligned together. So maybe let's get into that a little bit. Now that you've established a relationship with a partner, what does the evaluation process look like? If you're a business leader in here, you're a creative in here, you're a ministry leader in here, you've got a partnership with somebody, but now we've got a goal. We've got so how do I push you towards the goal, but then also reveal to you in a challenging yet encouraging way that we're not at goal? What does that process look like for you guys?
One thing I was going to say, because you mentioned this of like walking with people the whole way, and something that really just hit me is like, I don't want to create a business relationship. I want to create a deeper relationship. Like, for example, Jamila is on the VOUS team. I want to know what she got engaged. Like, I want to know that, and I want to like let her know I know and say congratulations, which I did. And me and my girlfriend are really close with Jamila, but like I want to do that with all partners. Like, I want to know them. I want to like check in. I want to talk with them, because I think one thing we're people, so. I might get offended by something, and I'm not going to tell you or whatever. Or you can feel that tension sometimes. And I think sometimes we forget, especially when you have a logo in front of your partnership. You can just see the logo and start getting angry at that logo and that God behind bars or whatever. But like when I call you and it's me as a person and it's you as a person, like it changes everything. And it's like, hey, we're just people talking. And we've gotten to mitigate so many, because it's just, it's just a hard thing. Like, and things get hard at points, and you have to just have a conversation. And I get the blessing of having those conversations. Come on, but and it's just important to do that. And if you can step in, and it's hard as people. You want to sometimes get angry, like, or get frustrated at somebody else. But if you can take ownership for yourself and like for your ministry, get on a phone call and just be the first one to say, I'm sorry. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, hey, I think we could have done this better. I just think that, I don't know why, I was just thinking, like, that's so important because it has mitigated so many things that could have gone way south. And you're going to have to re-ask your question again, but I'll let you answer.
So one of the things I'm thinking about when you're talking about, like, how do we know what we're, like, if we're working together? The analogy here for me is it's a scoreboard. Did we agree to the same scoreboard? Right. Are we playing basketball? If we are, what's the score? Because we need to know what the progress is. And so it's not we're both on the same team, but we both agree to what the scoreboard is, so that we're looking at when's halftime, when do we reassess, and how do we adjust in terms of teams, in terms of strategy. But we gotta have a scoreboard of some sort. And I'm not talking about numbers as in we saved or we worked with X number of children. That's a beautiful metric. But it's more like, how are we engaging souls? How are we sharing Jesus with everyone that we're working with? What kind of scoreboard does that look like? And so one of the things I'd like to share, I think that we've started in terms of the scoreboard, is we're starting to do foster licensing and recruiting here at VOU. And so one of the things that we've agreed to is a scoreboard. Yeah. In that, hey, how are we doing? How are we progressing? How are we going to reassess our communication strategy? Because we have people coming. We have people saying obediently, yes, I feel called to take in a child into my home. Praise God. Because if not, that child is going to be somewhere else. Yeah. And they need to be in a loving Christian home. Yeah. And so that's something that we know and we've agreed to as a scoreboard with foster care. And there's some other things too with I Love My City. But what's the scoreboard and where are we? So I think that's a really important conversation in the covenant, the agreement aspect of establishing the partnership, saying, hey, how do we keep each other accountable? And not for the sake of each other, but for the sake of kingdom building, right? We're doing kingdom building work together. So let's keep going and let's know what the score is.
Do you remember the question now?
I do. Come on, church. I think like we have different landmarks. We got a church inside of a prison, like landmark. We did it, and there's a lot of work before we get that. And then it's like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And I think on our side, it's a little different because I think sometimes the goals are changing. And I think on our side too is we want to be innovative to allow the church to enter into a new goal or a new just something new. Like we're doing something where we're trying to reunify inmates with their children and their families right now. And, we kind of tested it out and we're like, okay, this is working. Families are finding just strength inside of families right now. And so we're like, okay, let's go do it at VOU. Let's do it at Everglades Correctional Institute. So I think for us, it's like, it's also inviting them into new dimensions of, hey, we're opening this up. Like, do you want to come in here? Do you want to do this? And I think a lot of it is on the organization side, not necessarily the church, because I feel like the church is usually willing. They're ready. And it's like you creating a new space for them to walk into that's accenting what they're already doing, creating the base layer of, hey, we're doing church, but how can we go a little deeper? How can we help their families? How can we get their families to VOU Church? So I think on our side, I feel like it's on the organization to really create new spaces where churches can walk into, or businesses to walk into and be able to expand their horizons and expand their goals too. Because I think when things get stagnant, I don't think any church, as believers, when you feel stagnant, you just feel kind of lost along the way. And so I think it's on the organization to really just create new spaces for a church to jump into. And that creates excitement in the church community. we are taking the gospel new places. Like, that's exciting for churches.
That's very good. Come on, put your hands together for them. I think in this category, a lot of what we're saying is if you want to manage something, you've got to measure it. You can't manage what you don't measure. We say at VOUS, you got to inspect what you expect, right? So there has to be a calculated effort to evaluate what it is that you are trying to accomplish. Frustration comes from unmet expectation. So whether you're thinking about your relationship with your significant other or with a partner or with a pastor, whatever, whoever, a frustration is birthed out of an unmet expectation. And what's so true about expectations is that they are often not communicated clearly. So as you're establishing a partnership, you have to, what are the milestones or the landmarks that we're trying to hit? What is the scoreboard that we're going to evaluate ourselves again? And then even what is our process to ensure that we are putting forth that inspection, that evaluation? So I think sometimes when we're thinking about partnerships, it's important for maybe as a third party to hear from an organization challenges that you face with partners, because sometimes that'll pop in our mind like, oh, I might be a challenge. I might be difficult, you know? So like, what are some common challenges that you face with partners that prevent you guys, the actual partnership, from moving forward in strength?
That's a good question, because that's something that I know I see in our organization encounters all the time. It's something that we try to keep ourselves in check, and then our partners in check as well. Is what are we building? Is this kingdom building? Like, is this, sometimes there can be a drift in terms of maybe another partner's mission or organization where there's a little bit of a change. And I would say that knowing that God has been in a space way before us, and he'll be in a space way after us, we need to follow in his direction, and we need to build accordingly. And so we're giving this season with partners and organizations, but sometimes there's a thing called mission drift. I don't know if you've heard that before, but sometimes an organization may say that they do this, this, and this, but then they're trying to do something else. That's something to be like, hey, wait a second, are we still on the same mission? Are we still tackling the same thing? Because sometimes overnight it can be a change up in a program, and that's okay as long as there's clear communication. But sometimes the cart can get before the horse, and you're like, hey, wait a second, what's going on here? This is too different, and we're actually drifting apart, or the mission's just not being aligned. So I would say that's actually a big challenge, because I think in the confusion sometimes of what the future will look like, I'm going to be honest here, I'm not really quite sure what the next 5 or 10 years looks like in terms of technology, in terms of even like how church will, like if we're going to be online, if it's going to be a good blend of both. I say all that because in that confusion, sometimes we default to build something on our own strength or on our own wisdom. But I think it's important that if we're going for building this kingdom, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. What are we doing together to build the kingdom, and knowing that what we're building is eternal, and in the midst of any confusion, we make sure there's no clarity. I mean, that there is clarity, and that we're not just like on our own kind of building something else because we don't know what the future looks like. So, that trust in each other, keeping each other accountable, that's always been something where I know that mission drift has always been something to keep an eye out on.
That's very good.
Yeah, that is very real. I would say a lot of everything you said, 100%. Not even a lot. It's like 100%. And I think
97.7%. The part where you talked about future technology, that terrified me. Right. I won't have a job in 5 years? No, just kidding.
Shoot, we're all done. AI Isaac. What's funny that you're saying that is actually a lot of churches, I think staff turnover is every 3 years. So you have to calculate that in the whole thing. Like, it's every 3 years. My counselor said this, which I think I'm going to bring it back. Don't worry. I'm just going to bring in my counseling session. But I was complaining and whatever, walked in and he said, what did you say yes to? in all of it. And I think it's like at the beginning, you can blame a lot. You can live in that blame, or you can take ownership of what you need to. And I think first, because missional drift happens in churches, but it also happens in your organization too. So you need to evaluate yourself before you evaluate the church. And I think looking at yourself and say, okay, did we drift? Or where have our communication may have been off here too. So evaluating that, and then going to the church and really like trying to align again and trying to understand, hey, are you guys on the same mission and journey that we are on? And a lot of that, I think, comes from honor. I think honor is such an important thing just in general. Like, man, are we showing, first, evaluate, are you showing just so much honor to that church, to honor them and to honor the work that they're doing? Because they're doing stuff that, the people that going into ECI, they don't get paid to do that. Like, so we have to show honestly, double honor to them, because they're taking time out of their day, sometimes twice a week, to go into a prison. And but when you see dishonoring happening, like, you need to have that conversation with the church, because I think that's what I evaluate. It's like, are they like dishonoring just even our work too? But again, I always want to start with yourself. But like, honor is such an important thing. And when I start seeing that they are, even like when they're walking into a prison and they're frustrated and they're jabbing and they're like, that's when I'm like, whoa, okay, there's something here that we need to discuss. So one of the biggest things I kind of think of, and honor is a very broad thing. So I think a lot of, anger can go into honor, or dishonor. And you can kind of say, okay, there's something here, or there's frustration. So I think that's a big word that I keep on there, is like, are they being dishonorable? And can we have a conversation about that before we? But if that starts happening, then because that can start creating. I don't know if anyone's been in church culture a lot, but I love what they said the other day, or Levi said this. It's like, when you're dehydrated, it's because you've been dehydrated for hours, and sometimes things fester and it gets really tough, and you do not want to set that bitterness to get set in, and you want to address it ASAP. And sometimes it's too late, but that's kind of I kind of think of like honor. Are we honoring each other? And if we're not, we need to evaluate that.
That's very good. Come on, one more time. Put your hands together. I love that. In partnerships, there's going to be challenges. When we face these challenges, I love the 2 points here that we're hinging on is, what did I say yes to? So I have to evaluate first, if I'm facing a challenge with a partner, what did I say yes to? Am I off of, have I uncommitted to my yes, or am I still committed to my yes? Evaluate that first, and then evaluate whether there's mission drift. Is there a drift? Which sometimes it happens and it's natural, and that's okay, and it needs to be addressed. But if there is a unintentional mission drift, then that's where we need to be realigned. So I think today, maybe I'll just summarize our conversation, because I'd love to open up the floors to some Q&A. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I'd love for you to be able to ask any questions you might have pertaining to building partnerships, powerful partnerships. But today, in summary, what we're talking about is, when we're looking to identify a partner, first, we're coming from the mindset that it's God's intention for us to operate in partnership. It's God's intention for us to collaborate together. I love the metaphor that Panos was sharing. It's one horse can pull X amount, but 2 horses pulls 3 times that amount, 4 times that amount. God has designed us to work in community, and that's not just in our faith journey. That is in our everyday life journey and the mission that He has attached us personally to. So we operate first knowing that God is designed it for us to operate together. Now, as we are picking these partners, we're looking at alignment of values, alignment of mission. It is important to look at the tangibles, to look at the metrics, to look at the function, to see if there's synergy. But more important than that is, are we heading in the right direction? And that takes intentionality to pursue that. After we've pursued it and we've identified that it's the right partner, now throughout the partnership, It's consistent evaluation. You have to create a scoreboard. You have to have the landmarks. You have to manage what it is that you are trying to, or you have to measure what it is that you are trying to manage. You have to inspect what it is that you expect out of the partnership. And then throughout the relationship, there's going to be beautiful moments and you celebrate these things together, but there's going to be some challenging moments. And in these challenging moments, you can't quit. You got to reassess. You got to check your yes. You got to see if there's been mission drift, and then you got to realign to move forward in strength. Does that make sense? Yeah, come on,
let's
put your
clap
hands
for
together
that
one more
summary.
time.
And for that summary, come on, church.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this workshop. If you'd like to discover more content like this, check out the VOUS Friends and Family Network, created to equip you with free resources and real relationships. And don't miss the opportunity to be in the room next year at VOUSCon 2024, a gathering of global leaders designed to strengthen your faith and connect you to community.